Hello, this is Greg at ReserveMyCourt, and today I want to spend a little time going through some of the rules that you can set up for your club. And so the first rule we're going to talk about is the advanced rule, but let me show you where I am. I'm under club settings, and then right here under amenity rules and fees, and then I'm going to click on add a rule. Then you're going to have all these rule types to pick from. We're going to talk about advanced first. So you'll see right here, it tells you what this does. It limits how far in advance reservations can be made. So let's say I want to limit people to not being able to reserve more than 7 days in advance. So I'm just going to give it a name, and I always recommend that you give it a name that actually describes what you're doing. So I'm going to just say maximum 7 days in advance. And then I'll hit the next button. And here I can select, and you'll see it says min or max, and you'll see the language here. It says reservations cannot be made more than, or I can also say reservations must be made at least. So in this case, we're limiting them to 7 days, a maximum of 7 days in advance. So I'm selecting reservations cannot be made more than, I'm going to say 7, and then I'm going to select days in advance. Now, you can see here, this last part says day starts at. And really what that means is this 7th day that I'm talking about, when would this become available to me? It will come available right now, which is the default at midnight. So if today were, say, Saturday, then I could reserve that 7th day will be next Saturday. And this would become available to me immediately at midnight, which is the start of the day, by the way. That's not the end of the day. That's the start of the day, midnight. So today, it's Saturday. As soon as it hits Saturday morning, midnight, Saturday morning, I would have been able to reserve for next Saturday. If this is a bit confusing to you, you can obviously play around with it, and you'll see how it renders on the schedule, and it'll become more clear to you. Or if you have questions, of course, you can always call and ask. So I'm setting this up to be 7 days in advance, starting at midnight. I hit next. With all the rules, you can select when this rule will go into effect and then when it will end. For most of you, it's going to start immediately and never end. This would be a rule that's always in place, but if you have something unusual where your schedules are going to change in a few weeks and you want to go ahead and get that rule in place, you could say, hey, this starts sometime, in the future. But for now, we're just going to say it starts immediately and it never ends. If you want to apply different days of the week, you can do that right here. You can also select specific days of the month. Again, for the most part, you're going to be doing days of the week, and I've got all the days of the week selected, but you could have different rules for different days if you wanted. And I'm going to go next, finally, and I'm going to pick which amenities this rule applies to. And finally, I'm going to say what roles does this apply to. So maybe in this type of rule, you would not necessarily want to apply this to you as the admin, the super admin, but maybe for your members and maybe your captain or whatever, maybe you set this rule up if you want. Or maybe you come back and set up a different rule where captains are restricted to something like 30 days in advance, whatever you want to do. Just remember that if you don't have any rule at all about how far in advance, then your users will be able to make any reservation they want. So if you only want to restrict the members and everybody else you don't care about, you don't need to set up a special rule for the captains unless you want to restrict them in some way that's different. Okay, so I'm just going to submit that rule. It now goes in. And once that comes up, I'll get a confirmation message that that rule has been added properly. Your request has been completed successfully. Okay, I'm going to edit that rule real quick just to show you how you edit and also show you how this will look on the schedule if you do apply it to, say, your account as an admin. So I'm just clicking the pencil next to the rule there, and I'm bringing up now the rule setup wizard, and I'm just going to walk through. I'm not really changing any of this stuff. I'm just going to go here to the last screen, and I can change any of this stuff along the way, of course, but I'm going to say, hey, look, let's apply this to the super admin role. Again, I don't think you would typically do that with your advanced rule, but again, this will let you see what it will look like to a regular user. So now if I go to my club schedule for my 7 days rule, you'll see if I go out here to say next Monday, today's Monday, it's there, it's fine, but if I go to Tuesday, you'll see it's not. It's grayed out, and if I scroll up, you can see why. It says maximum 7 days in advance right there. So that's how you edit, and this is what it will look like to, say, a regular user if you've created a rule like that and you've prohibited them from reserving in advance that way. I do want to show you one other component about that maximum days in advance or maximum advance real quick, and that is You can also do it by the hour instead of by the day. And if you do it by the hour, it's more of a rolling window. Like if you do it the days in advance, it's going to be every single day blocked off. A whole day will be either blocked off or open. Whereas if you do it by the hour, and I'll go edit this rule again, we'll say, let's just say instead of doing max 7 days, we'll say max 72 hours in advance, whatever. And we're going to change this now to hours in advance, and we're going to change that to 72. And now I'm going to go next, next, next. And again, I'll apply it to me as a super admin so I can see it on the schedule. And so now when I go to the club schedule, so here we are on Monday, and it's 11 a.m. or just after 11 a.m. So if I go out for the next several days, you'll see everything's fine and available to me. And then when I get to, say, Thursday, what I'm going to see is that everything's good up to 11 a.m. on Thursday, which is our 72-hour mark. So you can see how that works, and that may be preferable for a lot of you. That does at least spread the load out a bit, rather than having everybody jump on at the same time to try to get the exact same times, because they all open up at one time. This way they sort of open up cascading across the time of the day. So that may be a preferred method for you. So I'm going to just go again. I'll add another rule. You wouldn't necessarily typically have multiple advanced rules, but you can. Let's say I'm going to do a minimum now. Let's say I'm going to say a minimum of, say, minimum 1 day in advance. So that would basically mean, hey, your people can't reserve today. Like it's kind of first come, first serve if there's nothing on the schedule for today. I'll go reservations must be at least 1, and I'll go days in advance. And obviously there's no selecting when that starts. It's immediately, of course. And same deal here. This rule, we're going to leave it to go into effect immediately and never end, and all days of the week. And we'll go for all 4 courts, and we'll go next, and we'll go member again. Actually, what I'm going to do, I'm going to change this one. I will put it in for the super admin. You wouldn't typically do that, but I want to show you, because I'm logged in as a super admin, how that will render on the schedule since I applied it to my account. So when I go now to my club schedule, you'll see that once it comes up, that today you'll see it's all grayed out. And that's because I've said, hey, a minimum 1 day in advance is required for me and for the member role. So if I go out to tomorrow, you'll see that it's now open up for me to reserve, right? And of course, I did not apply that 7-day in advance rule to me, but if I had, and I went out here, I would see this grayed out a week out as well. So that's the way the advance rule works. If you have any questions about that, as always, please reach out. These are going to be real quick videos. I'm going to do one on each type, so we're going to cut it off there. If you have any questions or need any help, please just give me a call, 678-428-5535. Or you can always email me. That's greg@reservemycourt.com. Thanks so much.